Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. So, the individual mandate unconstitutional. Notice, however, when you hear characters like this guy McCollum, right, the current Attorney General of Florida, who wants to be the governor of Florida. This is somebody that I've spoken to when he was in the House of Representatives on a number of occasions. McCollum is unable to formulate this situation in its true form because, of course, he's a reactionary Republican. He cannot come out and say, you're being forced to buy a product from a predatory, deregulated, for-profit insurance company. He's got to focus on the government compulsion rather than what it is you're being compelled to do. Interstate commerce, they can compel a number of things. But the question is, in this case, what specifically are you being compelled to do, and how can that fit under the general welfare? Therefore, all eyes turn to the Supreme Court. And, well, I might as well describe it in the traditional terms. This is now the question of the rats cabal, Roberts, Alito, Thomas, and Scalia. We know that in the 1930s, we had the four horsemen of the apocalypse. We had four reactionary Republicans on the Supreme Court who did a lot of damage, but they also did some good. Inevitably, there's no form of evil that doesn't produce some kind of good in spite of itself, as an abreaction sometimes. There were features in the National Recovery Act, NRA, that were put in the 1930s by corporatist Wall Street elements in Congress and elsewhere, in particular this guy, General Hugh Johnson, who was a World War I authoritarian, totalitarian corporatist. There were things in there that veered in the direction of this government-sponsored compulsory cartel. It was a mistake. It was lamentable. It was a waste of energy in the New Deal, and it was struck down. And I believe the NRA deserved to be struck down. It was a false direction for policy, and therefore the Supreme Court in that narrow instance, so not so narrow, but significant instance, did something positive. The other stuff they did, right, they're routinely striking down New Deal programs. They then got into an orgy of obstructionism. We now need to see whether these four reactionaries, Roberts, Alito, Thomas, and Scalia, will be able to do anything for the country, because they could do something positive by striking down the provision, the specific provision that says that there's an individual mandate. If you take this bill and rip out the individual mandate, you've taken a positive step. That's what I would recommend. You then want to turn around and not pass the $500 billion cuts in Medicare. No. Block that. No $500 billion taken out of Medicare. And then, of course, we need the doctor fix. We need $300, $400, $500 billion to be put back in order to bring the levels of compensation to doctors, hospitals, nurses, and other care providers up to some decent level, actually approximating the cost of providing these services. Because if you don't do that, you will have de facto rationing, de facto death panels going on in Medicare. Therefore, it would be much better, instead of coercing people with this unconstitutional means, it would have been much better to make people an attractive offer. That is, Medicare for all. Anybody and everybody who wants Medicare is invited to join it. No age limit. If you're employed, if you have a job, $100 per person per month. Discounts for families. If you're unemployed, if you're destitute, if you're already an invalid or something like this, then deep discounts ranging down to a complete free access to Medicare for all. You pay for this by ending the war in Iraq, ending the lunatic adventure in Afghanistan. You can certainly achieve major economies in foreign bases. I wouldn't simply liquidate them all overnight. That would lead to vast instability in the world. But a general path of gradual reductions of these, at least up to a certain point, would be a good idea. And then the Tobin tax, what is not present in this thing. Here we're giving money to insurance companies. We should be imposing a Tobin tax on insurance companies who speculate in derivatives, as well as everybody else who speculates in derivatives. If you do more than $1 million of trading per year, you are a millionaire. If you're buying and selling more than $1 million worth of stock per year, you're in the millionaire class, and therefore you will then pay 1% on all subsequent transactions in derivatives, stocks, bonds, futures, and other investments, foreign exchange, commodities, whatever it is, as long as it's a paper or electronic investment. Some people would say that's not enough. Some people would say simply apply the relevant sales tax of the state in question, that is the 8% to 11% in many states. Just apply that to Wall Street. Let them pay like the rest of us, and maybe that's a good idea too. My starting point is the 1% Tobin tax, much better than the 1 mil of the AFL-CIO or the half a mil of the British Labour Party left and the and some others. So that debate is ongoing. We'll have more about the Tobin tax, Robin Hood tax, Wall Street sales tax, trading tax, securities transfer tax, financial transfer tax next time around. But that's a way to fund Medicare for all. The other thing, of course, you want to do is claw back the TARP, claw back all of those bailout payments to these predatory banks. So end the wars. That puts you on track to saving $1 trillion over the next decade. Get that TARP back, wrap up AIG, claw back the money from those European counterparties, right, who got about $50 billion, Deutsche Bank, Barclays Bank, Societe Generale, Union Bank of Switzerland, Goldman Sachs, above all, needs to be put into bankruptcy, not even reorganization. Chapter 7, liquidation. They're so far gone, it's pointless. And with that, you'd have money for health care. So this is what has not been done, and therefore we're living now in this strange situation under strictly unconstitutional and above all anti-human, because the $500 billion cuts in Medicare, the other cuts in TRICARE, very significant. And again, the fact that all of this cost of the uninsured now is dumped on the states in the form of a Medicaid expansion. Well, that Medicaid expansion is long overdue, but this has also got to be financed in the world that we live in, and that makes the question of immediate tax income necessary. That's the Tobin tax. That's the securities transfer tax. Just about everything comes back to that as the first step, certainly not the last step, but the first step in such an approach. Now, I mentioned Jane Hampshire, right, Fire Dog Lake. This is a blog that essentially became prominent more or less about the time that Obama was running, and they were very much for Obama. Now, Jane Hampshire has had a moment of enlightenment, I guess an epiphany about the true measure of Obama, what Obama actually represents. She's very disappointed with Kucinich. What she had done in July of 2009, Jane Hampshire had gotten together and helped, along with others, to organize 65 members of Congress, more or less the progressive caucus of Democrats in the House, to pledge that they would never vote for a bill. They would vote against any bill that did not have a public option. Well, I would have to say to Jane Hampshire, public option is already a capitulation. What is this public option? This is neither fish nor fowl. Who the hell knows what this is? We need Medicare for all. Everybody knows what that is. It's time-tested. It's very well-liked. It's underfunded right now, but it has worked in the past. It has a tremendous record of saving lives, prolonging life, adding economic value to the economy through increased longevity, increased ability to use experienced and highly qualified workers, in the area 65, 70, and so forth. This is now reduced to the public option. Nobody knows what that is, right? That's a leap in the dark. So that was a slogan designed to fail, designed by some Republican or some Frank Luntz guy on the Democratic side to fail. We'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.